So as you can probably tell by the title of the video, the Mini has unfortunately failed its MOT. Now, I'll be completely honest, I'm not 100% surprised that something cropped up. We've only owned the Mini, what is it, 3 months, 4 months, something like that, so we haven't had it very long. It did have a bunch of issues when I first got it, and it's only failed on 2 things, which I don't think is too bad considering. The car has had a bunch of work. As you know, the head gasket was done, but along with that, a load of other work was done. I can't even think of it all off the top of my head, but the exhaust was done, 4 brand new tyres, some suspension work and stuff like that. I also actually did the drop links, all 4 drop links all the way around, couple of days ago. I don't know if you'll see this video before that one or whether that one will come out after this one, not entirely sure, but expect that soon if you haven't already seen it. But unfortunately it went in yesterday and it did fail the MOT test. Not on very much though, and let me talk you through what it did fail on and what we're going to do to remedy those things as well. So repair immediately, or major defects, as you can see right here, we've got, I'm going to have to read it this way, brake pipe excessively corroded offside front to rear. The guy at SwiftFit, which is where I took it, SwiftFit in Norwich, the guy's really friendly in there. I think he's the manager that always seems to deal with me. He's really nice, really friendly, told me exactly what I need to do to get that fixed. He knows that I do my own work at home, so he's more than happy for me to take the car home, do the work, take it back for a retest in 10 days. The brake pipe on the driver's side from about the front axle to the rear axle needs replacing the whole length of it, so I'm going to have to make my own brake pipe up for that. And the other thing was, just below it, that the brakes are imbalanced on the rear. It says 49%, which I didn't think would be that bad if it's 51-49, but apparently that's too much, and that is the 2 things that it failed on. So overall, not actually too bad. It could have been a lot worse. There could have been a lot more things. We've just had 1 advisory as well, which I'll just show you here. Oil leak. Not excessive, so got a little oil leak somewhere. I knew that. Actually seen the oil leak. It's on sort of the driver's side just behind the engine, so I'll sort that at some point as well. But there we go, 2 things to fix today. I did bring the car home. As you can see, I'm currently in the driveway sitting in it because I wanted to do the work myself, because I got a quote on it and it was going to be £80 for the brake pipe on its own, and then the brake work on the rear. He couldn't give me like a proper definitive quote because he wasn't sure how much it was going to be, because he wasn't sure what was wrong. It could have been brake pads, discs, calipers, you name it. It could have been any of those things that are wrong, so he didn't want to quote me on something when he didn't know what was wrong. It would have cost me money for them to take it apart, to diagnose it in the first place, and then you have to pay for it to be fixed. So you're probably talking at least a couple of £100, probably more close to £300 all in. And for me, I can't be doing that. And plus, I run a YouTube channel where I fix cars, so it only makes sense to bring my car home so that I can do the work myself. So that's what we're going to do. It's an absolute scorcher out here today. I don't know if you can see, the weather has been ridiculously hot in the UK the past few days. It's meant to get up to 33 degrees today, which I'm not looking forward to working in, but you've got to do what you got to do. So without further ado, we're going to jack the back of the car up. I'm going to investigate what's going on with the brakes. There has been a squeak on the passenger side brakes for a good month now, and I haven't got around to looking at it yet. So I'm hoping that it's just a case of discs and pads. I'm going to take the whole assembly apart, check the calipers first, and if they wind in okay and if they're all free, then it might just be a case of changing out the discs and pads. Hopefully that's all it is, and then I've got the brake pipe to do on this side, which I'll do second. I'll do that afterwards. So come with me on this journey as we try and get this Mini through its MOT. Those 2 things shouldn't be too hard to fix, fingers crossed. I don't want to jinx it, but yeah, wish me luck. Let's get this car taken apart. Let's see if we can fix these issues and get it through an MOT nice and safely. I've got 10 days as well. I forgot to say that. You get 10 days for a free retest. So hopefully I can get this sorted today and get it booked in within the next day or 2, and then get it through the MOT nice and safely. So let's get started. Right, so I've got the Mini jacked up, 2 axle stands underneath, both wheels off. First things first, I'm just going to give these brakes a visual inspection just to see if I can see anything obvious sticking out that would cause these to not work as well the other side. Basically, just to go into a bit more as to why they failed, essentially what they're talking about is one side is not working as well as the other. So there's like a 51-49 spread between the 2, whereas they should be working equally both sides. And so there's something not quite right. It's close, but something not quite right with either the pads, the discs, or the calipers themselves aren't working efficiently to actually work on both sides equally, is what they're saying. So I need to determine the difference between one side to the other, fix whatever it is, and hopefully they'll work. I'm thinking hopefully it's just the pads and discs, because they do look old and they do look worn, so hopefully it's just that. I can test the calipers to make sure that they work, so we'll do that as well. This is what we're looking at. We've got discs on the back. They look fairly old. They've got a good lip on them, as you can see. They're lip on the inside, lip on the outside, and on the back. I don't know if you can see that. There's a good lip on them, so they're not new discs by any means. They're very rusty, so they've been on the car for a while. The calipers visually look okay, but you don't really know until you try and push the piston back in. The pads inside have got a decent amount of life left on them. You can see right there. It looks like to me that the pads were changed, but they weren't changed with the discs. The discs have probably been on there for 2 or 3 brake jobs, but the pads have been changed more than what the discs have, if that makes sense. So I don't really like doing that myself, but that's up to whoever had the car before, because the pads look fairly new, but the discs, like I said, look fairly old. So this is the driver's side right here. Everything seems to look visually okay. I can't see anything really that obvious other than the lip on the disc that could be cutting into the brake pads a little bit and could be making them not brake as well as it could. But let's have a look at the other side as well and just check all the same stuff. I apologise if the lighting's really bad. Like I said, it's really sunny today. The lighting's going to be off a bit on either side. So again, discs got quite a bit of a lip on them, especially on the inside. I can feel a good amount of lip right there, but they look okay. There's no sort of weird marks on them or anything like that. I have taken the handbrake off, by the way. That's why the caliper can move, in case you're wondering. Something I have just noticed, I'm hoping I can be able to show you this, is if you look through the little sort of inspection hole on the back of the caliper, see if I can get you in there so you can properly see. Come on. Hopefully you'll be able to see this now. I've got a torch. But can you see that right pad seems to be, it's awful, seems to be hanging over the disc. But you can't really see it. The lighting is just awful. It's way too dark in there. But the pad that actually sits on the piston of the caliper seems to be like too far this way towards me, like hanging this way, which is not good. That means that it's not going to be fully seated on the disc and actually acting properly. So I'm thinking the only way to really like delve into this and actually find an answer, instead of just visually looking, is ripping the whole brakes apart, taking the calipers off and stuff like that, taking the pads out and just checking it all, make sure it all looks okay. And if anything looks untoward, I might have to go to Euro and get some bits and change them out. I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do discs and pads on the back here, and then I'll also check the calipers, like I said, and just make sure that the pistons are pushing in and out easily, and that the sliders are moving as well, because that can hinder it as well. So calipers are coming off. I'll disassemble all the brakes and then we'll have a look at them and see if we can figure out what's wrong with these things. Alright, so these calipers are held on by, I think, 7mm Allen keys. You just pop these little caps off the back, look, and that reveals the bolt. There's one at the top, one at the bottom. I think they're 7mm Allen keys if I remember correct. Let's just check. Yep. These aren't usually very tight, so I'm just going to crack these. Alright, that's what we've just taken out. This is like the slide pin. There's a little hex where we undid the Allen bolt. These are actually pretty clean, considering sometimes these can be really gummed up, but this one's actually pretty clean. Looks like someone's been in here recently. I will grease these up before I put it back together though, just so they move as freely as possible. But there's one of them there, and there's another one down the bottom just there. The last thing holding it on is this god awful clip on the front of the caliper, this spring clip thing here. These are horrible to put back on and take off actually. Just sort of pops out like so. There you go. They're a lot easier to take out than they are to put back in. That should be the caliper free now, hopefully. Might need a little wiggle. Right, well here's the brake pads. This is the front one right here. And that's the rear. You can see where the disc has been eating into them around this edge here. See that little lip? You don't really want to see that, but it's not the end of the world. I've got a feeling it's going to be a lot worse on the other side though. On the passenger side, the rear pad, or the front pad, looks like it's been eaten away, like all the way in here, so we'll have to check that. But they don't look too bad. The disc looks okay. The disc is held on by this one little Torx countersunk bolt right there, so I'm going to get my impact driver and take that out, make it easier. In fact, I'll just use the old draper, I think. Get that out and that'll make it nice and easy, and the disc should come off. I'm currently being absolutely eaten by these stupid flying ants. Look. They are absolutely everywhere and they keep landing on me. They're freaking me out. Now, as you just seen, the D-bolt wasn't man enough to take this off. So I'm going to hit it with this impact driver. You might have seen this before on the channel. I can't remember if I've shown you it. This is a snap-on one, but you can get them from various brands. It's got a 3/8 driver on the end there. And essentially, it's like a heavy old piece of metal. And you stick it on the socket, like so. If I zoom in. You twist this in the direction you want to undo, so I'm going to twist it to the left because I'm undoing left, and you just come in here with a hammer, whack on the end. I'll try and show you, I'll try and get a zoomed in thing of the tool actually work. So at this point, this is where a simple job becomes a difficult one, when one bolt doesn't want to come out. And that can completely flip the job upside down. This Torx bolt is being an absolute nightmare. I've tried one impact driver, 2 impact drivers, and the draper. None of them want to get that out. I've sprayed some WD-40 on and everything, so I'm going to let that soak for a minute, and hopefully that'll free it up. That's being an absolute bugger. Not only that, let me just show you something else I've found real quick, and that is the caliper. Can you see the boot on that? That is destroyed. Look at the state of this thing. It's got rips, it's been twisted, someone hasn't taken care when they've rewound that back. It is absolutely buggered, you see it? So this caliper could even be seized, I'm not entirely sure. But look, the rubber part is buggered. I don't know if you can buy, I assume you can buy new ones of these, but that is buggered. So I need a new boot at least, at the very least. Well, the passenger side has got even more demons than what the driver's side did. Let me show you this. Right, so I don't know who last did the brakes on this car. I'm going to try and block the sun for you. There you go. So this is the caliper on the passenger side now. I don't know if you can see that, but this one doesn't even have a rubber boot. It did, but someone's ripped it off. Can you see the remains of it right here? So that did have a rubber boot on it, but that must have got torn up. They ripped it off and just stuck the caliper back on the brakes like that without doing any other work. So there's a good chance that water has got inside that piston. You can see how crusty it is. Water's probably got inside that piston, and this one's probably a bit seized. I'm going to check, but there's a good chance that it is, because that's not supposed to be like that. Why do people do these things? Not only that, but the inside brake pad, like I suspected, has worn quite unevenly. You can see on the outside edge here where it's been rubbing against the disc. The lip of the disc on the outside, just here, has been rubbing away at that, and you can see the indentation of that. So they're pretty much trash. Can't use them anymore. The discs I'm going to change, and it looks like maybe calipers as well. So this car may be seeing a full rear brake restoration, and also this one didn't have a screw in it either. The whoever took it off didn't bother putting the retaining screw back in, the one that I had an issue with on the other side. They didn't even bother, which is fair enough. Doesn't need it. But there you go, you see the disc, pretty rusty and crusty. And this right here is what this pad was rubbing up against like that. And you can see how much it was overhanging. It was overhanging by, hang on. it was overhanging by probably about that much, when it should be sort of flat with it, more like there. But it wasn't, so whoever did these brakes didn't do a great job, I'll be honest. So the next thing to do, just to confirm my suspicions, is just to check both of these calipers. I'm going to get my rewind tool and try rewinding both of these back, and hopefully they move, and they might be savable if I get like a kit to save them. We'll see how we go. Right, so I think I've figured out what is going on with these calipers and why they've come back as a failure in the MOT. Now, on this passenger side one, I don't know if you can see, I've taken what was left of the seal off it, and that's like the little piece of rubber there. There should be a big rubber seal on this, whereas it's not. I've taken it off. I don't know if you can see, that's where it'd sit around there. I tried to move the piston with a pair of pliers. I put a pair of pliers on like that and tried to twist it, and it's like, it moves the tiniest bit but hardly at all. It's not free to move like it should be. I did the same on the other side, and I'll show you this one. This is the driver's side where the boot is ripped, but it's actually in pretty good shape because it was covered. I don't know if you're about to see this. So as you can see, the caliper on the driver's side looks like it's savable. It looks quite clean. The piston's all clean. Just needs a new rubber boot. But I don't know where I'm going to source one from. This is what the old one now currently looks like. I took it completely off. Completely shredded. But I think with a new boot on there, I think that this caliper will live again, because it does spin nice and freely. Whereas it's just the other side that I probably need a new caliper. I still can't get this screw out though. I've tried so many times. I've used WD-40 and everything. Still can't get it out. Right, good morning everyone. It's actually a new day today. As to all the footage that I filmed yesterday taking the brakes apart, that was yesterday. Today is fresh and new for a number of reasons. It got way too hot yesterday to be out there. It's even hotter today, so it's going to be a struggle, but we're going to carry on. A little bit of a backstory about what is going to be happening right now. I've actually got all the parts to refit the brakes on the Mini. There's kind of a little story behind how I got my hands on all of it. As you do when you need new parts, you jump online, check Euro car parts, check GSF car parts, Wilco, anywhere that you usually get your car parts from, you'll jump on there and check. Now I checked Euro car parts, I checked GSF, and I also checked Wilco, but the prices that they wanted for the brake components that I need was going to be like in the hundreds easily. And to be honest with you, I ain't willing to pay those prices. So I went on eBay and searched for 2 rear brake calipers because I decided I'm going to change both the rear calipers on the Mini. I found a company on there that sells the pair for £85 and that's delivered. However, when you scroll down on eBay, you can check where the items are located. You can see where they're posting from. And it turns out that the calipers that I had decided that I wanted, and the ones for the Mini, were actually in Norwich. They're about 4 miles out from where I live, so I figured I'd give them a call and see if I could just go and pick them up. Lo and behold, they said it was fine. They don't usually deal with sort of like face-to-face sales. They're like an online business, so they usually just post things out. But they allowed me to go and pick them up, paid them the money, and now we have 2 brand new calipers for the rear of the Mini. At the same time, whilst I was out, I also went to Euro car parts and picked up discs and pads for the car. That was all nice and easy, you know how Euro goes. Just ordered it online and went and picked them up, and that was job done. So I've got in front of me all the parts that I need to refix this up. This is all the old stuff here. This is all the new stuff. I haven't unboxed any of it yet, but I will get to that in a minute. I just want to show you some of the old stuff. I just want to refresh your minds a little bit as to the reason why we're changing all this stuff. So these are the 2 calipers. This is the passenger side, this is the driver's side. This is the one that was seized. This is the one that wasn't seized but had a damaged boot. Here's the discs and the pads. As you can see, these 2, I think, hang on, I can't remember which one was which. I think these 2 here were the ones from the passenger side, so with the bad caliper. And then these 2 were the ones from the good caliper. And I don't know if you can see the pad wear. Can you see how much meat is left on them? And if you compare that to the caliper that wasn't doing much, can you see how much bigger that is? So you can see, because the caliper was seized, it wasn't really using the brakes that much, which showed up on the MOT, and that kind of makes all sense now. So the discs, you've already seen them. I'm going to replace them as well while we're in there. Now the reason I decided to change both calipers was because if I change one side and the other side is not performing quite as well, it's going to show up on the MOT again and it's going to fail once again. So I figured, whilst I've got it all apart, might as well change both calipers. I got both calipers for £85, which is like £40 each, which is a bargain, so I might as well do it whilst I've got it there. They're from a company that I've never heard of before, but the guy was telling me, I was speaking to him when I went and picked them up, that they've just started to get into making calipers. I'll quickly show you them so you can see what they look like. I don't know which side this is. This is the passenger side. As you can see, it's all nice and shiny, brand new boot. Everything's there. You also get the fitting kit as well, so you've got all the new pins, new washers, new copper washers for the banjo bolt. Everything you need to fit this in. Looks like a decent unit to me. Looks like it's going to work. Handbrake cable bit there. They actually look like nice quality items, and for the price, you can't really complain. So, like I said, I've got both sides of them. The other one's just there. Pads all around for the rear, and then discs as well. So all this is going to be going on. Now I do just want to quickly address one thing. I know that some people are going to comment down below saying that I could have rebuilt these calipers, put new pistons in, new seals and stuff, because you can buy them on eBay, and I will. I'm actually going to do that in a separate video. I'm going to rebuild those calipers and have them as spares, clean them up, have them as spares, just in case these ones for whatever reason ever go wrong. Or maybe my dad needs a set one day because he's got a Mini exactly the same, so these calipers would work on his car as well. So I am gonna keep them. I'm going to rebuild them. I've already ordered the rebuild kit. You get new pistons, new seals, new everything. So I'm going to do that as a separate video, so that you guys can see how you rebuild a caliper, just in case you want to do it that way. But for me, time is of the essence, and also just for ease, I'm just going to swap them out and put new ones on. It just kind of makes sense for the price, and for the fact that I can do it myself, kind of makes sense to do it that way. So without any more jabbering, that is what we've got. All new brakes. The whole back end brake system is going to be completely refreshed, which is good to know. These are the seals as well that were on the calipers. You can see one's there. This was what was left of the other one. Pretty much nothing, so you can see why they've gone bad. And I did actually manage to get the piston out of this bad one. I twisted it all the way out with a pair of pliers, and you can see how bad all the scoring is on this one. And the piston's in pretty bad shape as well. It's sort of like warped and all chewed up and stuff, so that's why we're changing this. You can just give you a little look inside in case you're curious as to what it looks like. It's like a little threaded bar in there. There's the rubber seal. You can see it, the O-ring just around there. There's also some other seals and bits and pieces in there, but I will be rebuilding this. As I said, these two calipers will be refreshed and remanufactured so that I can use them in the future if I need to. But for right now, we're going to stick some brand new ones on because we can. Now, unfortunately for me, I don't know if you can see, it is an absolute scorcher again today. It's meant to get 33 degrees here. I'm in the east of England, so it's meant to get 33 degrees today at like midday, lunchtime, which is pretty much what it is right now. It's almost coming up to lunchtime. It ain't much fun being out there. I'm already sweating and I hadn't even got started yet, so wish me luck, stay hydrated. Let's get cracking on this and get this all put back together. Right, so as you can probably see, I've already done the passenger side all together. Brake pads in, caliper on, new disc, all buttoned up, all tightened up. This side is done. It just needs to be bled, but I'll obviously do that once I've done the other side as well. You can see how much fresher that all looks. Lovely job, well happy with that. So I did the passenger side earlier. I did it off camera because I didn't see the point in showing you it twice. I'm going to show you it on the driver's side to the best of my ability. But I actually had to abandon the job earlier because it got so hot out here that it was like unbearable. I think it was like 33 degrees today. You can actually see I'm already sweating and I just come back out. So it's like 7 o'clock now. It's a little bit cooler, much more bearable. So I'm going to get this side cracked out because this thing is booked in for an MOT or retest tomorrow, and it's also going to have the brake line done. I'll explain that in a minute, but I'm going to get these brakes put back together, get them bled, make sure that they work, and get this thing ready to go back for its MOT retest tomorrow. Right, so here's what we've got. As you know, new caliper, all the correct bits and pieces to go with it. We've got 2 new rubber slider things which are going to go into the caliper. I'll put them in a minute. 2 brand new sliders which have got red Loctite on them, and 2 little caps for the end of the sliders as well. That's in there. And they also give you 2 new copper washers for the banjo bolt for the brake line that goes on it. And obviously disc, both our pads. I've already given this a clean. I've cleaned off the hub and cleaned off the caliper carrier, or where the pads sit in. I've cleaned off that with a wire brush, so that's all now ready to take the new stuff. I'm going to clean off the brake disc because it's got some oil on it from where it's been stored. I've got some brake cleaner just over there, right there. I'm going to clean that off, get that situated, get the caliper mounted on there, get the caliper put together, get it mounted on there, and then the pads can go in and we should all be good to go. Alright, so as I said, you get these 2 little rubber sliders and they live in these holes on the calipers right here. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on them. They are quite a tight fit as well, so you have to push them in. So the disc is going to go on first, but like I said, a little bit of brake cleaner, because you can see, I don't know if you see it, the oily residue on it. Just going to clean that off. All right.
It's a bit cooler out here.
Yeah, that's why I've come out now, because it's cooler. Yeah.
Got to have a rest this afternoon.
Yeah. Right, so I'm going to get the caliper situated on here. I'm going to put just the top pin in. I've greased that up as well, a little bit of grease, probably not the right stuff, but it'll do. These new pins that have been provided are actually Torx. I don't know if you can see that. There you go, it's a Torx bolt instead of an Allen. So I'm using the silicone grease on these, because these go into rubber. They're rubber sliders, so silicone grease is probably the best stuff for this, because it won't deteriorate the rubber at all. It should help it slip the caliper slide up and down a bit easier. Now, disc is on. Caliper is hanging on by just that 1 pin at the top, so you can see we can lift it up. Time to put the pads in. The one with the metal is the rear one, the one that goes to the piston. So the piston will press on this. I guess these metal bits are like anti-squeak, not entirely sure. And then this one here's the front. I'm just going to put a little bit of copper grease on these ends, which I usually do. Got myself a little paintbrush, paint it on with, otherwise it usually goes everywhere. Just putting a little bit on each end, not a lot. So this one here, like I said, is the front, so I'll put that in. And then we can go ahead and install the bottom pin. Again, we'll grease this one up. Right, so it's time now to get this brake line and handbrake cable connected to the caliper. On the new caliper, I don't know if you can see a little blue screw there, that's just like a protective screw. They stick that in there, so when they transport them and stuff, don't get no dirt in there or whatever before the brake line goes in. As you see, it's just like a little threaded screw, just goes in there. Take that out, and then our kit actually came with brand new washers. I think there's one stuck on here. This is the banjo bolt right here. I think there's a washer on there. I have to try and get that off, because one goes this side of the banjo and the other one goes the other side of the banjo, and then it goes on. So I'll just give this a clean as well. So there's our 2 new ones. One of them goes on the bolt, like so. And then if we put the bolt through, the other one just goes on the other side, like a little sandwich like that. And that goes into the caliper. Last thing to do is to get the handbrake cable up back through here, this thing in. That just goes through that hole. We just need to get it into the springy bit right there. Right, that right there is the brakes now all assembled. That is both sides done. All bolts tightened that need to be tightened are done, and this is how they look. Handbrake cable is in, the brake pipe is attached and tightened. The only thing left to do now is to bleed these things. I need to bleed both sides, but I've got my special easy bleed thing which I can just stick onto the brake reservoir, pump the fluid through and just break the nipples on both sides. Hopefully it should be pretty simple. I almost forgot this pesky little clip that just lives on the front of the caliper like so. Got myself some .4 brake fluid. Just going to top up my pressure bleeder just because it needs to have fluid in it to be able to function. Now if you watch my videos regularly enough, you will have already seen this thing probably a number of times on the channel. This is my one-man brake bleeder. It's from Sealy. There's the model number in case you want to know what it is. Essentially this bit just screws onto the brake fluid reservoir under the bonnet. You pump it up with pressure using this, like a bicycle pump. That applies pressure and fluid, because it's topped up with fluid, through the system, which is basically just gives like a constant stream of brake fluid coming through. So this thing works wonders if you're working on your own. So I'm going to get this hooked up to the car. We'll pressure it up, we'll bleed both calipers, and hopefully should be job done. Now the bleed nipples on these calipers are 10 mils, which is right there. Now ideally I should have a pipe coming off this into like a container, but the best I've got is an old bucket, and then I'll spray this down with brake cleaner afterwards just to get rid of the residue. But let's crack it loose. First one, wait for the fluid to come. I'm just going to let it run for a minute or two just in case there's any trapped air in here in the caliper. It looks like a pretty solid stream to me. Now luckily when I took the brake pipes off these calipers, when I changed them, I did clamp, as you saw with the pliers, I clamped the line so there won't be much air in it anyway. But that looks like a pretty solid stream to me, so I don't think that there's any air in there whatsoever. So I'm going to close that up and we'll try the other one. I heard a little bit of air come out when I first cracked it. You might have heard that little psh puff as well. But we'll just wait a minute. There you go. It doesn't take much to fill up this caliper, to be fair. It's only this small little bit back here. It doesn't take very long. I'm going to close this one off as well. Right, I'm going to go and pump the brakes and just see what happens. Push these pistons out a bit. Caliper feels good. I might just give it one more bleed on either side, just for luck. Right, that is job done. I've bled the brakes. I've cleaned them off with the brake cleaner so there's no more brake fluid around here, and they all work. The handbrake works. I've tried it out. I've adjusted it as well, tightened it a little bit. Some of you eagle-eyed viewers in the past may have seen that the handbrake, you sort of have to lift it up like 10 clicks. So it's now about 4 or 5, which is where it should be. But everything looks good. I've double checked all the bolts. Everything's tight. I'm very happy with how it all looks and how it all functions. I'm going to get the wheels back on now. I can't test drive it because this car at the minute doesn't have an MOT, but I am taking it to the MOT station in a little while anyway, so I'll give it a test then and just make sure that everything works, especially the handbrake. But it does seem to work. And that is, if you can't tell by my face, a very sweaty very hot, dirty, greasy day finished on the Mini. That is all I can do. That is literally all I can do for right now. The two things, as I explained at the start of the video, it failed on was the brakes were imbalanced on the rear, which is what we've just sorted, 2 new discs, 4 new pads and 2 new calipers on the rear. It really only needed the left hand side, but I figured I'd do it all whilst I was in there. Peace of mind and all that, and it's good to know it's done. The only other thing it needs to pass the MOT is it needs a brake pipe. It says on here, brake pipe excessively corroded, offside, which is the front to rear one. I've already phoned the guy. I'm quite friendly with the guy at Swiffer. He's a really nice bloke. I gave him a call and I just said, can you do the pipe? Number one, I haven't got time to do it, and number two, being on a driveway with axle stands and stuff like that, it's really not much fun doing brake pipes. You've got to flare the ends and all this sort of stuff. So instead of that, the car is going to go in for the MOT tomorrow, and before it has this re-MOT, he's going to quickly do the brake pipe for me, which is I think £80 he said. I think he's going to charge for the whole line from the front all the way to the back of the car, which I don't think is too bad. So that is the plan, and hopefully by tomorrow and by the end of this video, we will have a Mini that has passed its MOT with hopefully a clean sheet. The only thing it will probably have is the advisory on here for the oil leak, but that's not a problem. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. The hardest thing of this whole process today, doing the brakes, has not been the actual changing of the brake calipers or any of that. It has literally just been the heat. Any of you that are living in the UK right now will know. I think it was 33 degrees today, probably even hotter in the blinding sun, which is where I've been most of the day. I had to take a break midday because it was just exhausting, and to be honest, it's hot right now. I'm sweating right now. My arms are covered in sweat just by sitting here, which is just crazy. Anyway, I'm going to stop blabbering now. The next clip you're going to see is the Mini, hopefully with a MOT on it. So I'll catch you guys here tomorrow after the Mini's been to the MOT place. Wish me luck.